Hey, what's up? Well, I might have time for another quick video while I have a rare opportunity. Not going to explain the situation, but, my dad's away as opposed to asleep. And so I think I'll be able to make a quick video. And what I'd like to talk about in this video is a word that I've learned recently. It's called anthropomorphic. I hope I'm not butchering that. Animals. And I think I want to title it Anthropomorphic Animation, and why I hate it. I used to just call it personification. But here recently I've learned of this new word, anthropomorphic, and what it means. It's usually in cartoons when an animal is made to be more like a human. And, it's basically animals talking and behaving like humans. And we were taught in school that it was called personification, and that was a big enough word for us then. And, it's just something that I don't like. And I didn't really have such a complex reason when I was younger as to why I hated it. I just knew I didn't like to see animals talking. And, I'm wearing my cross today because we're getting close to Easter. And, because I believe that humans were created in God's image and that we are unique, sentient beings. And that the rest of the animal kingdom just doesn't share our unique ability for language and talking. And, a number of other things. And I just want to talk about how, I never, I never could quite articulate why I hated it so much. Why I've just always hated this, I want to say for sure since the 50s. It's almost like it curiously started happening around the time that evolution started to be taught. And then, as it became more widely accepted. And I've just always hated cartoons in particular. Because usually that's what it is, unless it's a puppet of sorts, like Barney or, things on PBS that were basically like the old-fashioned version of CGI cartoons mixed with real kids, Sesame Street and all that. But, I just never could articulate why exactly I hated it when animals and inanimate objects were personified or anthropomorphized. And I hate it because, it makes it easier to accept evolution, which I didn't even know about evolution at the time when I decided that I hated it. I mean, I've hated it since I was in the target demographic. And as I've stated before, that's why the first cartoon that I really got into, was when my sister got into Rugrats. And, before that it had been Gerbert. And if you notice the common denominator between those two, it's that although it's a quirky little character, it's supposed to be human. You know what I'm saying? Gerbert could almost be a Rugrat where he animated, and I've always thought that there should have been a little boy on Rugrats. I actually created my own characters for a while, and I made one that was very similar to Gerbert, except with brown hair and light skin. And he was about the age of Angelica, and I called him Ralph. But, I guess I couldn't really develop these characters, once I got out of the obsession. And, of course, I didn't really get into animation in college, but they only existed in my own mental fan fiction. But if you notice the common denominator, between Gerbert and Rugrats and Sophia the First, and I want to say, it's Told by Ginger in between then, and Rocket Power to an extent. And the Thornberrys were probably my least favorite of the Klasky Chupo, and for that very same reason. because that's where you found the personified animals that Eliza would talk to. And so, the common thread between all these cartoons that I would actually sit and watch for long enough to get hooked was that they always had to have primarily human characters. Now, unfortunately, they did ruin Sophia the First, by having so many of such animals mixed in there. But, to whatever extent, it's like the minute the animals would open their mouth to talk, that's when I hated the show, and I'd have to mute it sometimes when they would sing. Same thing with Elena of Avalor. But, I am just of the mindset, even when I couldn't articulate why I felt this way, that, that animals are not humans and they should not be made to have human qualities on TV. And, I believe that animals do communicate, but in animal specific ways.
How do you go? How do you go?
They're very cute when they communicate, but they do not communicate like humans. And I feel like it's degrading for a human to be the voice of an animal. That's about the last thing I would be ashamed of that. If there was a cartoon with a mixture of humans and animals, and I had to admit that I was one of the animals, in a show where there are actually humans. Come on, how degrading can you get? So, it's just not something I've ever enjoyed, really. Cannot stand it, even when I didn't quite have the words to articulate why I felt that way. I just did not like to see, and that's why I never watched Ren and Stimpy or Rocco or, all these animal. There were animal characters, like Tiny Toon Adventures. That would play around the time of Rugrats. But until Doug came on, I absolutely would not watch it. It had to be human characters for me to get into it whatsoever. That was a requirement. First and foremost, the characters had to be human. And, because I'm just of the mindset that animals do not communicate like humans. They communicate, but in their own specific way. You know what I'm saying? They have usually one or a small number of sounds that they make. And with cats, it's meowing, hissing, growling, etc. With dogs, it's barking and whimpering. They all have ways of communicating, but it isn't talking. And so, I'm of the mindset that, humans were created in the image of God. That we were given dominion over the animals and, all the other living creatures. And that's why I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian. And it's an instant turnoff, when someone is one of those things for that reason, because they don't want to hurt the animals. But, I think it's disgusting when people see themselves as being on the same level as an animal, and that they're not a superior sentient being created in God's image. I think it's gross, that you would want to believe that you evolved from monkeys. And that word primate, I made a video all about that. But, it was around the time that I had that cold in May of 97 that I learned that stupid word. Because we happen to be studying, like, the different orders of mammals, as they're called. And, how primates included humans and apes. And it was so infuriating. Because, it's like, I hate that, being lumped in with a monkey or a gorilla just because I have an opposable thumb. And, I think it's stupid because humans are not animals and we did not evolve from animals. It's just, evolution, as I stated before, is a religion. It takes just as much faith to believe in the Big Bang Theory as it does to believe in the Bible, the creation story. And so yeah, it's like I just never really got into cartoons, with animals. Never liked animal characters that were personified. Never liked SpongeBob. That's another thing. My sister got into SpongeBob. I never could, because obviously she's 9 years my junior. That was just one thing. I would get so angry at her and other kids her age for thinking that SpongeBob was just as good as or on par with, say something like As Told by Ginger and Rugrats and Rocket Power and Hey Arnold and Jimmy Neutron, for not caring which one played. You know what I'm saying? Like I would get so angry when they would decide not to air As Told by Ginger and instead they might have SpongeBob. And I would feel so angry about that. Like I didn't get to see the next episode because of that, but yet my sister would act like that didn't matter. SpongeBob was just as good as a girl, that could write in a diary and go to school. And, I just really hate, personified animals, animal characters, anthropomorphic animals. Just hate them, hate them, hate them, hate them with every fiber of my being. I felt like when I was a child, I hated it because it was like, back then I saw it as something that like distinguished children's shows and cartoons from adults. You know what I'm saying? Animals were really only important in children's shows. And I hated it because, I felt like it kind of defined me as a child, you know what I'm saying? It kind of like it was one of the painful reminders that I had been redshirted, meaning like held out of kindergarten an extra year, put in school at age 6.5 instead of 5.5. And, although, I mean, that's only somewhat true that I may not have been doing the same stuff next year, but in my mind, I always had this idea that the kids in grade X plus one, it's partly fantasy, but I just thought they would be doing more mature activities. You know what I'm saying? Watching more mature shows. But then, of course, I'd get there and I'd see that that wasn't as true as I thought it might be the year before. So I hated personified animals on TV because it was like, here I am watching this dumbed down kids show, and that the reason why animals were so important, was because I was being forced to watch children's media. You know what I'm saying? Shows that are made for and about adults rarely have animals as main or important, or certainly not talking characters. You know what I'm saying? They're never the main central focus of a show aimed at adults. And so yeah, I just hated animal cartoons and talking personified animals and animals that wore human clothing, female animals being sexualized with eyelashes and other human specific performances of femininity that I already hated, hated being expected to do things like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, it just I guess after about 3 or 4 years old, once I got out of Mickey Mouse, once I got tired of him, um, just don't recall any animal characters that were ever important or significant to me from that point onward. And I guess all animal characters just kind of reminded me of those days in that age group. You know what I'm saying? Before I went to school, they always just reminded me of like Mickey Mouse and Teddy Ruxpin and just dumbed down content for children that I didn't want to watch anymore once I got well into my school years, and certainly once I got into junior high and high school. And so, because of that, the Wild Thornberries were actually my least favorite of the Klasky Csupo main four on Nickelodeon. Um, and that's simply because they had animals with human voices that Eliza would talk to. And so, really and truly, I mean, that right there, that should have ruled out me ever seeing that third movie. Because Bruce Willis being the voice of that stupid dog was about the last reason I would have ever cared about seeing it. You know what I'm saying? And that could be why my mom didn't really care about bringing us to the movies, you know, because she saw it and she thought, man, this is dumbed down. You know, this isn't advancing, this is dumbing down. And, you know, with my sister being 11 and me being what, almost 20, a week shy of 20. Oh, I hear that train. Um, you know, it just really wasn't the thing that we were into anymore. But yeah, and that's another thing. Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, I like the fact that it's a train, but I don't like the fact that he has a human face. And you know, Beauty and the Beast is stupid, you know, through most of the movie with all these inanimate objects talking. But you know, I just think it's really stupid. I think it's dumbed down, and you know, I just don't like it because um I just feel like, yeah, it's just stupid. It helps people accept the idea of evolution, the theory of evolution, you know, and the idea that, um, like, you know, the only reason I like Yoda is because it goes with the space theme, but I never really got into Star Wars. Um, the idea that something non human can become human, um, yeah, I just hate that. And, just never really liked it. And I find that, you know, the people that continue to like such things as adults can be some of the most disgusting people that, you know, I've ever heard of. Some of the most disgusting people in the world are, you know, these furries that like to wear diapers, aka diaper furs. Yeah, and really, I mean, it's stupid because, like, if you really, I mean, a true animal has no need for diapers whatsoever. You know, I have never put a diaper on my cat or any dog in the past. I've only had like one dog. Um, and yeah, it's just not a thing in the animal kingdom. That is maybe the one, perhaps one of the few areas where animals really are superior. You know, they're not stupid enough to put a diaper on their baby and expect that 2 years later, you know, the kid is just going to say, okay, I'm ready to use the potty. Um, you know, it's like animals don't need or wear or use diapers most of the time unless humans force them into it and then they don't like it. First thing they want to do is rip it off. But you know, there's just this whole mixture between animals and diapers. You know, like these bronies or My Little Pony fans that want to wear diapers. I mean, it truly is disgusting because I mean, a real horse, it truly would be disgusting to put a diaper on a horse. And you know, drawing My Little Ponies with diapers is just stupid. It just shows how ignorant such people are for continuing to like such things and, you know, wanting to wear diapers as adults. So yeah, I'm just not a fan of talking animals.